Chiefs Instant Reaction post-game show is live. I'm Brendan Dworzinski, joined by Dan Lucero. One of us certainly faced with the result from tonight. Chiefs, they fall to the Green Bay Packers 27-19, week 13 of NFL action. Boy, howdy, is there a lot to get to game, and not a whole lot of it is all that good for the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's start with the good. The offense, for the majority of the game, Dan, they moved the ball however much they wanted, wherever they wanted, however they wanted. The offense, I thought, for the most part, was really good in this game. The bad, too many bad penalties. The sacks in the red zone were costly. I don't know why Isaiah Pacheco is throwing a punch in the final minute of the game. That was unbelievably stupid. And the officiating. And I know that people are tuning in to talk about that, and that's the talk of the town. And NBC spent their whole post-game show just now talking about it. So we might as well bring it up before we get to the game itself and what went wrong for the Chiefs. Look, I mean, you know where my allegiance is. If you've heard me speak for like 10 seconds, you know exactly what my favorite team is, team I'm an owner of. And it was a joke. I mean, it was a complete clown show at the end of the game. I thought, you can do the whole, well, it was bad both ways thing. And yeah, I thought the flag on the late hit on Patrick Mahomes, that was not good. The officials did not correctly run the clock. Well, they should have run the clock when they ruled MVS's forward progress stopped. He was not out of bounds, his forward progress was stopped. But the worst call of all was that MVS was clubbed. He was completely obliterated on the back end of a deep ball that very clearly should have been defensive pass interference, and that wasn't called. This was a great game, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a lifelong Packers fan. Like, this was a really fun football game and a great showcase for the NFL. Current biggest star, rising star quarterback in prime time. And for this to be the lasting story, that sucks. And I know it sucks for the Chiefs in general. And again, we'll get to the football itself, but man, that is a sour note for this game to end on.
I'm going to talk for a little bit here, Brendan. I think a lot of the people tuning into this, you may be the last person they want to hear from on this right now. So
totally fair.
I'm gonna take a second here. I'm gonna stretch my legs a little bit. Start with the officiating. I mean, if you watch any NFL game all season, it's just bad. It's bad in every game. It's bad on every play. It's iffy from game to game. There's no conspiracy. There's no makeup calls. It's just bad. They're bad at their jobs, period. That's where you have to start with the officiating. You hope you end up, you hope the roulette wheel of officiating spins your way at the end of the night. And a couple of times for the Chiefs it has. And tonight there at the very end, I don't know how that's not. I mean, I've heard Terry McCauley use a lot of words. The officiating gurus on the networks, Dean Blandino, Gene Steratore. I've heard them use a lot of words. Unfathomable is not a word I've heard a lot. And that was a word I heard in describing not having a flag thrown on that last on that play to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That was pretty bad. The late hit on Mahomes, the nearest I can figure is if the officials all thought he was giving himself up at the end of the play, and that's why that flag was thrown. But again, you have to squint to make it make sense, right? Like that's the state of NFL officiating. And that's just where you're at. And it's unfortunate that it did affect the end outcome of the game. I know they spent a lot of time in the post game talking about the Hail Mary. Man, I think you actually have to commit simple assault. Jailable simple assault to get called for a pass interference on a Hail Mary. That's just me. Like, I'm not, if you're begging for a flag on a Hail Mary, there's a lot of other things that had to go wrong for you to not win that football game. So that's my piece on the officials. They're bad. It's bad every game. You get what you get. I mean, this is the state of NFL officiating in 2023. And unfortunately it did mar this game. It's not the reason the Chiefs lost or the Packers won, but it absolutely marred the final drive of the game. Now let's actually talk about the game. Chiefs, I thought, first 4 drives averaging nearly 5 points per drive. They look great, and then they didn't score again. They had the 3 and out where, again, we never got a great replay, but Richie James appeared to fall down, and I don't think Patrick Mahomes would have run 20 yards down the field to have a word with the back judge on that if he didn't think there was something objectionable on that play that might have, changed the face of that drive if a flag comes out there. Then the next drive, Mahomes throws the pick, and it's a good play by Keyshawn Nixon. It is. First of all, he beats Sky Moore to the spot, and he makes a really outstanding play on the ball. Like Chris Collinsworth said, DB ran the route better than the wide receiver. And that's one thing if we're talking about, like, let's let's use some contemporary examples. Like, that's one thing if we're talking about Trent McDuffie running a route better than a wide receiver. That's one thing if we're talking about like prime Darrelle Revis or Patrick Peterson or Richard Sherman, like those
Dan, what are you trying to
guys.
say about Keyshawn Nixon here? What are you trying to say about 25 in green and gold?
You tell me about Keyshawn Nixon as a defensive back. He not those guys, is he?
Better kick returner than DB. I will leave it at that. Better kick returner than cover man.
So if you're having Keyshawn Nixon run the route better than you as a wide receiver, that's not real good. That's not what you want. And Sky Moore didn't run the route very well. And that's one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is you called a slot fade to Sky Moore? What? Sky Moore? All of a sudden now he's in the circle of trust again for a big play with 5 minutes to go. Why is that the call? It was mind-boggling to me. The Chiefs ran that final drive where Mahomes gets the pick, and there was a pass interference for that. Again, if we're giving a full accounting of things, that was a pretty soft flag on Rashee Rice. Like, I understand why it got thrown, but it's pretty ticky-tack. I've seen less not get flagged for sure, or more not get flagged. We saw a lot more not get flagged later on. Like, the running game was killing Green Bay, and you had 5 minutes and you had half the field to go. Stay with the horse that brought you and run the ball. They destroyed. You were on top of this from the beginning. You said the Chiefs should be able to run the ball at will against the Packers, and they did. This was Pacheco's best game right up until he decided to be Roy Jones Jr. there on the fumble return that ended up not counting. He was terrific. They ran the ball at will. They did whatever they wanted on the ground, and Andy Reid's far from the only head coach to, we're trailing in the fourth quarter. We got to throw it. And goodness knows over the years, you're okay with, hey, we have Patrick Mahomes. Let's go make a play. But the strength of the team tonight was very obviously the running game. And that was what was going to see them through to a victory. And they called slot fade to Sky Moore instead. And frankly, that play call deserved the outcome. To be completely honest with you, setting aside the throw or the route or whatever, you call a slot fade to Sky Moore, you deserve to turn the ball over. Like, I don't know. I don't make the rules. But that was pretty appalling because there were a lot of really good things. Like, again, the Chiefs look to be in a very similar rhythm as they were against Las Vegas last week. They found some things that work for them. They're running the ball probably better than they have. They have the best run game and the best defense they've had in the Patrick Mahomes era. And they've lost 3 of their last 5 games that are 8-4. I mean, go figure that, right? And that's not because Mahomes is all of a sudden like his talent is like, it's not like a flowers for Algernon thing with him. It's that he's throwing to Sky Moore and Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yep. That's
what the problem is. The offensive pieces that make this go are Kelsey and Pacheco and Rashee Rice. And at the moment the Chiefs got away from that, what did they do on that 3 and out? The second down play, deep shot to MVS, and he turns the wrong way. The interception, you throw it to Sky Moore, and he gets outrun on his route by a middling NFL defensive back. You go away from those guys, you go away from your bread and butter, and you get burnt. And that is what it is for the Chiefs. They don't have the margin for error. They don't have the ceiling. They can't go away from what works, because the moment they do, they get hurt for it. And that's what happened tonight. That's why they got out of rhythm, is because they got away from what made them successful.
And I think our guy Goober in the YouTube comments, he's right there with you. He said, hey, MVS and Sky Moore, they cannot be in those big game situations. In fact, during the post-game interview with the winning players on the field, Melissa Stark asked Keyshawn Nixon what happened. Nixon said he knew exactly what was happening. And I don't know if that's a very obvious play call that they had seen on film. I don't know if that is Sky Moore had a tell on the route. I don't know. But again, you should not be getting owned by a defensive back like Keyshawn Nixon. And I love Nixon, but again, mostly because he's a better return man than he is a defensive back. So that's a big concern right there. They just don't have the horses in that regard, which is worrisome. And look, I know you just mentioned it, so I don't need to harp on it too much, but I'm going to take a victory lap on that. I told you guys on the show all week long, if the Chiefs just commit to running with Isaiah Pacheco, there is nothing the Packers can do about it. And that was the case all game long. I know a bunch of folks, including Jacob Westendorf from Packer Central, who we had on the show on Friday to preview the game. He said, look, and said during the game, these tackles for the Chiefs are not good. It was not an especially good day for Juwan Taylor. The left tackle situation, that's a wild card. I mean, you throw that up to fate that Donovan Smith was banged up for the game. But you know who is great? Tooney and Humphrey and Smith, and they were moving bodies all over. Kenny Clark, who I talked about as a key player during the show at one point this past week, did he play? Was 97 for Green Bay on the field? I mean, he was erased completely. That is a massive win. Keep going to that. Carl Brooks, rookie for the Packers. Great season so far. He was a nobody in this game, save for a missed tackle on a long Pacheco run. Like, they were erasing that three-man front for Green Bay. Rashawn Gary had 1 half sack, but didn't do a whole lot in the game. They were killing you. You got to keep riding with that. And we harp on this all the time. And I know that it is in Andy Reid's DNA. We pass. We are a pass-first team. We're going to run a little bit just because we feel like we have to, and then we're going to throw the ball, and look, we have a quarterback. I totally understand that. But I think this is not a team right now, and largely because of who the pass catchers are and who, frankly, who the tackles are, this is not a team that is built right now to just beat you into submission with the passing game, that we could throw 10 incompletions in a row, but that 11th pass is going to be a 75-yard touchdown bomb. That's not what this team is built like right now. You've got to have the flexibility to go at least a little bit to what you described as the bread and butter of this team. If you know it's working, and the whole world did. I told my wife the entire fourth quarter, like, if the Packers don't score a touchdown here, this game is over. Pacheco, he'll give it 6, 7, 8 yards every single touch, and they're going to cruise to the end zone. And they wouldn't do it. And it's infuriating to watch, because you have the answer. You have the test in front of you. You were given the answer key. Why wouldn't you just copy the answers down? You have them there, and they just don't follow it. And I think that's the thing that's infuriating for the Chiefs. Absolutely. They were getting whatever they wanted. I thought Mahomes, for the most part, looked pretty good. Kelsey got in the action. He had 81 yards in the game. You mix the ball around a little bit. Rashee Rice made play again. He continues to get better every week. And yet you still made the backbreaking mistakes. And that is the frustrating thing, because you know they have the answers to fix it, and they just won't apply them in the right moments.
6 yards a carry. If you discount the one kneel down for Mahomes to end the first half, you're gaining 6 yards every time you run the football. And that was with anybody. I mean, Kadarius Toney had one carry for exactly 6 yards. Pacheco was a beast. Just, you got to be who you are. You got to know who you are. And this is the Chiefs offense that still is sort of caught in the middle between what its identity has been, that has won it championships, and what its identity needs to be to win a championship right in the here and now. That's it for the offense. I want to talk about the defense. Game of 27. It's the most they've given up all season long. First thing, they really missed Drew Tranquil. That was a big loss. And I felt that it was going to be a big loss right when you saw him go down. He took A.J. Dillon's knee to the helmet, and I knew right then, he's not playing again the rest of the night. There's no chance. Mm-hmm. Like, the way he went down, as long as he stayed down, there was no chance they were getting him back. And I didn't think Jack Cochran was terrible, but he's middle linebacker 3. And when you're middle linebacker 3 and you're not as well versed, you're not a veteran guy, you're not as well versed communicating with the defense, communicating pre-snap, do you know what that makes you susceptible to? Misdirection. And I have not seen a team hurt the Chiefs on misdirection the way the Packers did tonight. Their misdirection stuff. And some of this, look, Matt LaFleur called a great game. Jordan Love played a great game. His wide receivers made that 4th and 1 arm punt that Romeo Doubs comes down with was a great play. The touchdown one play after that to Christian Watson was phenomenal throw and catch. I mean, as good as it gets. Indefensible. Yep. Like, I don't care if you're the 72 Dolphins, 85 Bears, 2013 Seahawks, you are not defending that play. Like, sometimes the offense wins the rep. And they won a lot of reps tonight, but I think one of the main reasons they were able to do that was that void in the middle I thought was pretty keenly felt. That being said, Green Bay was better at the line of scrimmage, and that had a lot to do with them being able to get the running game established early, and they played the game on their terms. And that's something that here in the last month or so, the Chiefs have played against teams that have been able to play all 60 minutes on their terms, what they want to do. And when the Chiefs got the Packers out of that, you saw the results. You saw Jordan Love flustered under the pressure. You saw him make some bad throws, miss some throws. He had the 3 straight incompletions on the field goal drive. I think the one that made it 24-19 at the time, when the Chiefs finally started getting home with some of their pressure. But they didn't get home often enough. They didn't win at the point of attack often enough. It was not an A+ game. And it needed to be, because they went up against an offense that played just about an A-plus game and a quarterback who played really, really well. I mean, this is like Green Bay's a better team than their record right now. You ran into a team that is playing hot and playing with a lot of confidence, and playing on the road in prime time is never an easy thing. And you got. But I think that what it comes down to in the end, like the broad scope of this is, we have looked at the Chiefs for the better part of the last 5 years, and they have for the broader part of 5 years plus been just a machine. And every game they're supposed to win, just about, they go and they take care of business. They've taken a step back this year. They're merely very good. Look, they're 8-4. They're going to win the division again. They're going to be a high seed. They're going to be in good shape. They're going to have a chance to make a playoff run because of the pieces that they do have. But they're merely very good instead of awesome. And when you're very good, you could lose a game like this. You could lose a game to a team playing well with home field advantage, and you lose some guys to some key injuries. They play a A-plus game, A-plus scheme on offense. This is the kind of thing that can happen. And that's about as simple and plain as, you don't like tipping your cap. And if you're a Chiefs fan, you haven't had to do it very often here in the last half decade. But tonight, you kind of got to do it. You kind of got to tip the cap.
We have a comment from Katie, who's watching along on the WIBW News Facebook page. And Katie, we appreciate you and everyone who's hanging out with us tonight. And she says, Chiefs fan here, but they've been playing like trash lately. I don't think I would go as far as to say that, but I do think it is worth doubling down on the point you just made, Dan, that we are not used to seeing the Chiefs play in games where they're not dictating how the game is going. Last week against the Raiders, pretty typical of this era of Chiefs football. Yeah, they got behind early, but after that, they set the tone defensively up front. Quarterback was making the plays. They set the tone in that game. Second half of the Philadelphia game, though, a couple weeks ago, yeah, that was the problem. The Bronco game a few weeks before, yeah, the Chiefs are better than the Broncos. I have absolutely no doubt about that. And the Broncos finally lost a game this Sunday. But again, it was, hey, you guys aren't making the plays you normally make. And I thought a lot of mental mistakes kind of showed their ugly head in this game. The play calling, we've already been over that a little bit. The one that stands out to me, and you mentioned it, and it effectively was an arm punt by Jordan Love on 4th down and 2. Chris Jones right in his grill. Love throws it up, and he's been coached. This is fairly well known in Green Bay. He's been coached to get more air on his deep balls. He threw that ball damn near out of Lambeau Field, and it falls right into Romeo Dobbs' hands as he's already down on the ground. And look, it's a great throw. I mean, it was right on the money. But Justin Reed, who I think we on 580 Sports Talk have done a great job of hyping up this year where not a lot of people have. I think Reed has had a really good year. He made such a boneheaded play. If he turns and plays the ball, if he just reaches a hand out looking up to it, it's broken. Chiefs get great field. Game very likely swings the other way, or very well could have swung the other way. Instead, he decides to be like Ray Lewis with the hit stick in Madden 5, head down, dives into Dobbs instead, and the ball falls right behind him to 87 in green and gold. I mean, you just don't see that from this team all that often. And especially this defense this year, which I think has been one of their biggest strengths, is they just always make, even if it's not the most spectacular, athletic feat, they always make the right play at the right time. And we just didn't see a lot of that today. And again, like you said, the Packers didn't make any mistakes, or very few mistakes in this game. And sometimes you get out-dueled, but we're just not used to seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, you can point to a lot of guys who've been really reliable on the defensive end, and you can point to costly mistakes. L'Jarius Sneed made the wrong play that cost the Chiefs big yards on a Packer drive. A couple of missed plays, and where he got the play after is where he got stiff-armed by Christian Watson. Plays that don't happen to L'Jarius Sneed very often, mistakes that he made. Trent McDuffie got beat on the first touchdown, that route over the middle, and it's tough sometimes to follow it that far across the field, but McDuffie got beat. I do have information from Eagles fans that if one team has trouble with their footing, that the result of the game doesn't actually count. I have heard that from Philadelphia, from Greater Philadelphia,
just a couple times.
Yeah, if one team has trouble with their footing, it looked like the Chiefs had trouble with their footing. Like Josh Williams fell down on a crucial 3rd down completion. Looked like they had some trouble with the footing tonight. So maybe, I don't know, take it to the Supreme Court, something, get it thrown out like Eagles fans were talking about doing with the last Super Bowl. I don't know, see where that goes. But yeah, uncharacteristic mistakes. They weren't it wasn't their best game, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But even on a bad night where the other team played brilliantly, you got a chance to win at the end of the game, and that's what I keep coming back to. It is not as though the Chiefs are not in position to win these games. One break or two the other direction, they could very easily be like the Bronco one was just like F minuses all the way across the board effort wise. He turned the ball over 5 times. One of those games, but like they're a break or two in every game from being 11-1. They're right there. They are not far off, even with the offense not having the ceiling that we're accustomed to having it be, even with it feeling like they've taken a bit of a step back. This is still a really good football team. They just got beat tonight. They got beat by, and this Chiefs team is not so otherworldly on offense that they are not susceptible to getting beat by somebody else who does have a really good offensive game. I think that's kind of the final thought I'll leave it with is this Chiefs team can be had, but it doesn't mean that they can't. They'll get better. They're going to get Nick Bolton back. That's going to help their defense a great deal. Hopefully none of the other injuries tonight. It looked like Brian Cooks was probably pretty serious, which is a real bummer. He was playing well. They're going to have to replace him in the secondary, but they're going to have a chance to do that like in practice instead of having to do it on the fly. That should help. They've got some depth there with Mike Edwards. I don't think, again, like this is necessarily fatal or this exposed the Chiefs or whatever takes you generally see on Twitter after a game like this. It was just one team played better than the other. And you can say that. You can throw out all the other stuff about the refs. You can throw out everything else. Like Green Bay played better and they won the game.
Yep, and Eric Eager, our pal from Sumer Sports, he just put that on Twitter moments ago that, hey, look, the calls are the calls, but the team that played better won tonight, and I think that's bias aside, I think that's an entirely fair way to put it. That was the last note I had too before we get out of here. Man, I hope some of these injuries aren't too bad. No, it's a concussion for Tranquil. That sucked, and that really did set the tone, I think, for this defense, because if you're without Bolton, the fact that you've got Tranquil, that's the best insurance policy for any defense in the league. If you've got Bolton but no Tranquil, okay, well, Nick Bolton's one of the better, traditional inside linebackers in the league. You ended up with neither for most of the game, and I actually thought Jack Cochran played pretty well, all things considered. Chanel was out there for some big snaps. I thought they held their own the best they could, but they're not an all-pro like Nick Bolton, and they're not the best fourth linebacker in the NFL like Drew Tranquil, and that hurts. And yeah, I hope it's nothing too serious for Brian Cook, but man, that looked nasty. The fact much tells me that ankle injury. So obviously best wishes to those guys that they're able to recover as soon as possible. We will, of course, be recapping this game in full. Every detail of it coming up on 580 Sports Talk tomorrow from 2 until 6. We've got a lot to get to from this weekend. College football playoff reaction. We'll talk some college hoops. We'll, of course, go around the entire NFL. We'll talk to Matt Verderam from Sports Illustrated. All that and so much more is coming up Monday on 580 Sports Talk from 2 until 6 on 580 WIBW. But until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzynski. Thank you for joining us for our 580 Sports Talk Chiefs Instant Reaction Show. The Chiefs fall to the Green Bay Packers in Week 13. We'll talk to you guys all about it even more coming up Monday on 580 Sports.